I'm Sharon Lettman. I'm the Vice President for External Affairs at People for the American Way and People for the American Way Foundation. I also oversee all of our national programs and outreach. Grassroots is the cornerstone of understanding how to mobilize a community. The community itself is the grassroots. The people, the infrastructure, the cultures, the landscape. Understanding how people think, what matters to them, the inner core of their inner strength as to how they find their significance, how they find their citizenship is my definition of grassroots. For the progressive movement, grassroots mobilization is its core. It's the nucleus of our existence. The issues of the progressive community that matter to people are those that can only be reached through grassroots mobilization. Media, the airwaves, all of those things are important, but nothing touches the voter, nothing touches the citizen like the one-on-one contact. So grassroots mobilization is where it's at. It's our nucleus, it's our core. It's if you don't understand it, you don't understand the progressive community. What the progressive community has to understand is that the direct voter contact is essential, especially in the landscape of today's democracy. Civics education is no longer mandatory. So when you're dealing with a first-time voter, when you're dealing with the apathy that exists because of the amount of election challenges we've had over the last 4 years, 4+ years, what am I saying, 6 years, the reality is that the voter has to be re-educated. Some have to be educated for the first time, others have to be re-educated, and they have to be inspired. They have to understand what our Constitution is about. They have to understand what our Bill of Rights is about. They have to understand where they fit in the fiber of American democracy. Because there's so much polarization going on in this country, and it's just getting started. It's real that we literally have to re-educate Americans of their citizenship. So the reality is you can't do that with a 30-second soundbite. It has to be that one-on-one contact. It has to be spending time developing communities, developing the heart, developing the value system again, teaching people why it's not just about being powerful or being empowered. It's about what matters to you and that every voice counts. So strengthening that inner core, that inner relationship of the citizen to make them understand why their value system matters and how they are as powerful as any big lobby, as any multi-million-dollar industry. That is a education that can only be done with one-on-one contact. It's just like kindergarten and first grade. It's that cookie on the bottom shelf. It's that grassroots. It's that real that you've got to get into the face, into the core of that individual, and you can only do that through the direct voter contact. Volunteers are, I put them on the same level as being a part of the core of the progressive movement. People want to be involved. Progressives want to be involved. They're the most passionate people you'll ever meet. They're the most giving people you'll ever meet. They want to know that their democracy is valued, and they want to be a part of that. They want to be a part of that direct voter contact. They want to be used as instruments to move people and to share their passion with others. So volunteers are a core part of our machinery. It's great to pay to play, but it's nothing like finding that passionate person that's willing to give up their time, their energy, their resources to be a part of our movement. The most valuable players are our volunteers. I'm kind of from the school of hard knocks. So with volunteers, I'm like, first of all, it's not about you. You're here for the campaign. You're here for the issue. There's a playbook. Your input is welcomed, but let's first go by the playbook. Let's look at the playbook. Let's learn the playbook. Let's see where you fit in. Then we'll take your skills and resources and we'll find the best way to use you in the campaign. Be assertive, be aggressive, be forthcoming, but remember, there are rules that we have to follow. There's a game book that we're trying to execute. So as a volunteer, we want your energy, we want your passion, but we also want to make sure that you're here for the right reason. So it's very important to kind of set those ground rules from onset. You want people with energy, but you don't want people that think that they're there to take over. You don't want people to think that they're there to redirect the mission at hand. So really treating the voter just like a direct contact voter. First, you got to educate them as to why they're there. They have to know that you're organized. They have to know that you're in charge. They've got to know that you've got your act together, that you know how to utilize their time, and they'll meet you right there in the middle. But we've got to do our part on our end, and then the voter will come with us wherever we choose to lead them. Making sure that you make it about that individual, making sure that you find those issues as we target an ID, make sure you find those issues that matter to them. First, engage the voter to find out what matters to them. Why are you engaging them? Why are they important? Understand the demographics and understand their profile, understand their pain. Many voters that you encounter, especially the apathetic voters that you're trying to engage, you really want to help them see their value system, not just with rhetoric, but really give them the stump that you're there, but you also need to listen. They also need to know that their opinion matters, because the one thing that a voter that may be on the fence needs to know is that if you can't hear them, how do they think that that vote that they're going to cast is going to be heard? So it's really important to make them see some value into not just you giving your pitch, but to why their voice is important to your pitch. Some of the best practices that I've experienced, especially I'll start with youth voters, who tend to be some of the most challenging, especially from an apathy perspective, or why does their vote count, is really trying to create an environment by more of a marketing than anything else to meet them where they're at. The biggest thing organizationally is to obviously know your targets, but to really create the space, whether it's their lingo, whether it's fitting into their culture, fitting into their arena, not just coming with a suitcase, popping a tent, and it's one size fit all. You got to really understand how to carve out your niche, how to give everybody the benefit of the doubt when you're doing targeting, and listen to their voices. The best people to empower communities when you make the community run the campaign and give them the space to be a part of the campaign. So obviously how you build your team to make sure it looks like that community, to make sure that you have some generational understanding of the community, to make sure that you are creative from not assuming that at a basketball game, the only thing people want to do is watch the game, but creating a fanfare is just like Nike Just Do It. It's, brand it. Brand your campaign to the community. Create that selling energy, create that pitch. Brand democracy. Make people find their connection. Like we did one campaign, what do you stand for? Giving people, you're asking a question. So you're eliciting them to give you that response. Same thing, another campaign that we worked on that's really focused where the community created their own campaign, and really keeping it local, making sure that the spokespeople, the brand that you're trying to energize comes from the local community, not just the elected officials, but who's the best block captain, who's the best community organizer, making sure that they feel that they're a stakeholder in building the organizational fiber to be able to build that energy towards that target audience. Yes, absolutely. The peer-to-peer model is the best model, but also empowerment model. People like to see others that care about their community, not in a charitable perspective, but an empowerment. People that understand their community. You could cross cultures very easily as long as the people are really sensitive. Not, I've worked there before, I know so-and-so, but really understanding that it's about building their community. When people see that someone that's not of their community is a cheerleader for them, it's also a good brand that's socially acceptable. Obviously, it's a trust factor. There's an engagement factor, and that if that work is done, anybody can organize anywhere, but peer-to-peer is definitely the best model. First, get to know the community. Get to know the community organizers for the local projects. Get to know the up-and-coming leaders in that project, because all communities are underserved are really going through a change of dynamics in this country. So it's almost like the old vanguard, the baby boomers are being challenged. They haven't been taken over yet, but they're being challenged. So you gotta have to know the factions in a community, in an underserved community. And you can't come in charitable. It's kind of like what I said to you earlier. You have to come in empowering. You've got to come in because you're taking on a movement that is all about myth and propaganda and hype, and talking about everything we've done wrong. So when you're engaging underserved communities, when you're not in power, You really have to meet them where they're at and give them the energy to say that this is their movement and this is how they're going to build power. Underserved communities want to know how they're going to build power. They're going to know that if they're going to stand with you, especially in progressive community, what is in it for them. It can't just be because it's the right thing to do. That doesn't fly anymore. It has to be about what's in it for them. How are they a stakeholder? How are they going to matter? Not just their children and their grandchildren. They want to know right now what's going to make a difference for them if they stand with you. What's in it for them? What is their asset value? And what are they going to gain from being with you? And we better have an answer. Right now, progressively, that has to be the center focus of what we do. Because just as I was saying, as progressives are trying to regain their footing, it's not just about developing our message. It's not just redefining our value system. We're very value oriented. But leadership is the same combination that I said that civics education is not being taught anymore. So you're really teaching a new generation about their democracy. You really have to look at yourself as a social studies teacher all the way to being the head of your own progressive organization. You've got to build a dynamic to build a generation that understands self-worth and self-pride and not just anger and opposition and defense. We have to run an offense strategy. And leadership has to be focused around developing an offense strategy. What is the next generation? Generation X, Generation Next, Generation Y, that's insulting. We have to define the next generation. Baby boomers had such an exciting name. What's the next generation's title? And how is it empowering them? How are they feeling that they matter? Now the generation after that is being born into, and from the teens to the 20-somethings to the 30-somethings, where do they fit in the dynamics of leadership, succession planning? What is their value system, and are we acknowledging their system? Are we acknowledging their new way of talking about it? So developing those pipelines, developing that soil from the root on up, and giving them a place at the table, not just a token seat at the table, that has to be a part of our fiber and leadership development. And without it, we're going to go nowhere fast. Well, it's funny because I'm thinking about my retirement already, and I'm not 40, I'm happy to say, but I'm looking forward to it. But at the same time, because my generation is such a critic of baby boomers, I'm a person that has had an opportunity to be at the table. But I knew that lull. I knew that nobody invited me to the table. I had to earn myself to the table. So as in leadership, one, I've learned to listen better. I've learned how to meet people where they're at. I've learned how to help pull the inner you out to make a stronger you. Because I'm from the School of Hard Knocks, I don't give passes. So my hard knocks will give you a gentle land, but you're going to think you're falling before I put my hand out to catch you. So the goal there is to, don't soft shoe it, but you got to be a listener. You've got to be a challenger. You've got to be willing to challenge the status quo. You've got to be willing to teach people the fundamentals of strategic planning and strategic thinking. You can't just engage a bunch of doers. Part of the problem is we got too many people that can do what we need them to do, but can they develop it? Can they strategically and analytically create that map? It's like the day I learned how to play chess at the age of 8. It was that love of strategy. It was that love of really understanding the board. It was that love of if I make this move, what is the consequence? So leadership has to be based on consequence. It's got to be based on an offense plan. You got to have a command of the art of war and the art of peace. And you've got to be able to really focus on listening, developing, challenging, and building.